Town Council regular meeting for the workshop will come to order. I think, do you have anything you want to add, Mr. Salazzo,
I think we
before we
also have to
start?
say that the planning board is also coming to order as part of this workshop.
Thank you so much. Assistant Manager Jackson.
Good evening, everyone. I was trying to remember the last time we had a joint meeting between the planning board and town council. It has been a little while. I'm going to start us off and by first saying this is an aggressive agenda. There's a lot on here. I frankly don't have any reasonable expectation that y'all are going to get through all of this, but we did want to put some things on this agenda to give you time to think about it and also tell you what we would like to have conversations about. So if we don't get all the way through it, we will repackage it and get it back out to you at a different meeting. So I don't want us to necessarily rush through everything on here because that really deprives the good conversation that y'all like to have. So the first topic we have is the comprehensive land use plan update project. And I'm going to sort of introduce this topic because we do have some new folks and it's been a while since we've really talked about comprehensive land use plan. And the current plan was adopted in 2019, and we have annually updated that each year to mostly just to update the priorities list, which we'll talk in good detail about. But this really is an important plan I'm looking at town council and then I'm going to look directly at the planning board. Planning board actually uses this plan a lot. Just about every single meeting they actually take out the plan. This is what your current one looks like. They are very familiar with what's in this document. And the reason it's important is that a lot of the work that they do, they have to send you recommendations that include a consistency statement, meaning whatever they're looking at, they have to sort of evaluate against the comprehensive land use plan and whether it is consistent or inconsistent or doesn't address, for instance, all of those things they have to include in their recommendation to you as town council. This document is, it's a planning document, which means that some things don't happen the way we plan them, but it's still an important document. It is adopted by town council after a review by the planning board and public hearing, just like a lot of the work that you do in the land use area. It's got to go through those same procedures. So planning board looks at the draft, makes a recommendation, comes to you. You set a public hearing on it, take some public input, and then get to decide to update your plan. So the current plan did talk about, any questions in general about what this is? So we did, the last plan was adopted in 2019 and kind of contemplated an update, a pretty significant update in about 5 years. And so that's actually what staff and the planning board have been working on. And so I'm going to, at this point, turn it over to James, if that's okay, Mr. Mayor, so he can give you a little bit of an update on where that project is and where we've got to go.
Absolutely, it's good to be here and appreciate the opportunity to be with everybody this evening. You'll find on the screens, as well as I believe it's page 5 of your agenda packet, what's sort of a hybrid project overview at this point. You'll see that staff began the process back in May for the comprehensive update that Jennifer was just describing. And we were on pace until we realized that there was a fairly important event in the middle of this sequence, and that was the November general election. At that time, and what's laid out in yellow on the tab now, was consensus was sort of achieved by that version of the planning board and that version of town council to pause for approximately 90 days to allow this new council to become seated. You'll see that if we continue to trend toward adoption this evening, we call for a joint meeting of the planning board and town council, which of course we're accomplishing right now. A final draft of the plan will be done in February following the input of this meeting, and then onward toward a planning board recommendation, a public hearing before town council, and hopefully adoption after the public hearing. So that's sort of where we started and the pace that we're on now, and that would answer any questions that anyone may have related to this proposed project overview. While Jennifer and I are trading the HDMI cord here, I'll sort of continue talking until someone tells me to stop. What we're going to be looking at next is the action plan table with the stated goals, responsibilities, and priorities of the comprehensive land use plan. This is the portion of the plan that Jennifer had mentioned had been updated yearly. So I think it's important for this group, this iteration of town council and the planning board, to discuss their priorities, so when they are adopted either in the plan or as a component of the plan, we're all pointed in the same direction and getting the things done that you guys want addressed.
This really does become staff's to-do list, so we do take this really very seriously and try to accomplish as much as we can. I think there was one year where we had a couple of number one items that just didn't get completed, but I think that was a storm year or a COVID year or some external focus or event.
And as these conversations go tonight, I'd ask that we all keep in mind that number one is the highest priority. That carries with it a standard or an expectation that whomever is responsible for that particular stated goal will have that goal addressed within 12 months. 2 is generally 24 months, 3 is generally about 36 months.
Before we move on from this page, just want to draw attention to lines 7, 8, and 9, as those particularly will be relevant to the discussions that we might have later if we have time about new zoning districts.
So this section that you're seeing on the screen, and it is in your packet on page 7. This is a brand new section. It's called General Plan Goals. And what we found is that the last version, it had some goals, some very general goals that were scattered throughout the document. And we wanted to make sure that those were put onto the document that was easy to, that it gets reviewed annually and easy to update. But we also thought that some of these are pretty obvious. Legal and regulatory compliance. These are the big things that maybe if the planning board is looking for something that may not be specifically addressed in the plan, they've got some things that they can fall back on and evaluate a new issue, for instance, against these general set of goals. So legal and regulatory compliance, clarity of regulations, regulations, efficient and streamlined processes, preference for development within conventional districts as opposed to conditional districts. We'll talk more about that later. A variety of zoning districts to meet the development needs of the town, diversity of housing options to provide for a range of affordability within residential development, commercial areas to support residential uses, and open space and tree canopy preservation. So that, again, a bunch of just very general. Yes, sir.
Jennifer, just for clarity, do the items on the action plan table now incorporate the strategic plan goals?
Yes, sir.
Which I think we have 8.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We'll see that as we go through them. To the extent that we found strategic goals that were aligned, they're in the notes. You'll see them noted in the notes. Yes, sir.
Super.
So one of the things that would be helpful, this is where I don't know whether you want me to say this or you do. One of the outcomes of this meeting, normally, the planning board takes a look at it, the town council takes a look at it. You'll see staffs, as we go through, you'll see staff rating, and that's, I'll tell you, that's James and I. Scotty, we do not loop you in on that. I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
Demerit number one. So normally you're each doing that, but the planning board meeting was canceled, so they didn't have a chance to really meet and do that because of weather. And so we thought this may actually be a better conversation to sort of get to where you want the priority to be. And so I think that if James, putting words in his mouth, if James had an outcome of this meeting, I think he would want the ratings of these items, the rankings of these items, so that we're ready to put that in the final draft. Maybe that you're not ready for it, but we can at least give it a shot. We've also got the blank spaces here so that there is an opportunity if somebody has a good idea and wants to add things, that's perfectly acceptable.
So one note that I wrote down that didn't seem to jump out, of the document was an action plan for town thoroughfare analysis. And I think, given the great news that we've had about the hospital, I think it would be definitely timely to take a look at the town of Weaverville, from either a satellite or whatever camera we can use, and say, how do we improve and enhance the ability of emergency vehicles to get through our town to our new hospital? And my own feeling is that we've just got a lot of bottlenecks, and as I mentioned to Jennifer this morning, Church Street was blocked by James, you saw this too on the way to work. We have these occasions where our main thoroughfares, for whatever reason, are blocked, and we seem to have some opportunity, I think, if we look at the map, to say we could improve, our access routes, with some modification to our street template if we just take a hard look.
And with that being said, some of the obstacles that get in the way are some of our festivals in town that are requiring a detour around Main Street to get through, which I think will also increase emergency response time. And it seems like there's more and more and more of those things going on, and I'm not against the festivals. I am concerned that we are taking too many opportunities to block the road that interferes with emergency traffic coming through, especially when the hospital opens.
So study and improve thoroughfares within town with an emphasis on emergency access.
Yes, thank you.
I would say even in the broader term, there is a line item, number 44 it appears, which is engaging conversations within CDOT about long-term planning for growth. When you say thoroughfare, my mind immediately goes to Main, Merriman, the Boulevard. Those are all NCDOT roads. I think we're all familiar with that at this point, but engaging those conversations with our friends in Raleigh and here at the local level is something that staff continues to do.
But I think if there is an opportunity for us to not block Main Street for reason of the festival, I think we need to take a different look at that. That's for a different conversation. But that goes along with Phil's thing that we're not giving a lot of thought with the planning board as to thoroughfares and how we're managing those types of things.
I don't mean to belabor that topic, but ironically, I brought that up at the last planning board, but it was
town council have a liaison to NCDOT? Didn't we, Catherine was before? Oh, okay, okay.
I actually, I appreciate the comments and the forward thinking on that. It's a very timely consideration. I love programming. I love programming on Main Street. I love programming down near Town Hall. When I'm not out of town, you're going to see me enjoying all of the everything that the programming has to offer. So I really like that. I would say, because I think it's an extremely valid consideration, that there may be, it may be worth looking at some data around when we do programming and what those emergency calls look like, and how many emergency calls are impacted, and if there are response times that are belabored as a result of that.
Well, I know with the traffic increase on Main Street, there has been a significant increase in response times when the fire station has to come down Main Street to go, for example, up Greens Creek. And so I know we have, benchmarks to go by, and there's many occasions we don't meet those benchmarks on a normal day. So when we're not meeting those on a Monday through Friday, when the traffic is normal, and here we are closing off, a large chunk of Main Street for whatever reason, then that's also going to impact response times on at Greens Creek and areas that are, using Main Street to get through to.
How many days a year do we close off Main Street? It's like 3? 3?
We got the parade, because it's for the holiday parade, the art and autumn, we've got music on Main.
July 4th.
July 4th, there's 4. It's just something to think about. It's not saying that we need to cancel those, we just need to be mindful.
Right.
So I added study and improve town thoroughfares with an emphasis on emergency access under your streets and sidewalks. And we did, James did point out the engage in conversations with NCDOT about long-term planning for growth. So that's good, that's on there. Is there something that you want concerning the events? Understand this is land use focused. Is there something that you want on here concerning, and I'm looking at all the town council at this point, concerning the special events?
Well, for example, if we could move music on Main, that's a WBA event, to the nature park where there's a stage already, that's going to free up traffic from Main Street and also add additional parking to that one event. So it's just something to consider.
I agree. I'm just trying to figure out does it belong on this plan, or does it belong on a strategic plan? And that to me sounds more like an operations type thing and less land use.
That's fine.
It's a good question.
It's a great question.
Yeah, but it's not, in
It's probably
theory,
not
part
for
of the
land
land
use
use
plan.
plan.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm not missing what you want to do here.
One part of this that could be land use, are there any areas that would be opportunities for emergency vehicle only access roads? Roads that might have been closed in the past that are being used. I'm not familiar exactly with where these could be, but not saying it would be open to all traffic, but just in an emergency use or for restricted use. Is there anything like that in town?
There is something, I think, coming out of Northridge Commons over there, that new development, Hobby Lobby. There is emergency access road, from my understanding.
But you're correct, but it's, the people live on it. It's still, it was just, they couldn't go through it, Gill Branch Road. That the people that are gonna live in the new development can't use that road for normal access, but, and Selena had wanted, town vehicles to be able to use it on an everyday occurrence, and that got squashed, and it's, emergency vehicles can go through Gill Branch to get in there for emergency. You're shaking your head, is that?
Yes, that's right. And then if there is an emergency within that development, then the residents can go out, use that as an emergency exit, as a second exit, but you're right. I think what you're saying, are there alleys or
Well, there's a
something?
ghost road behind, the Alan Shepard's went off of Alabama, but that's just not very long.
It's all woods now.
Yeah.
That's just trying to think
Yeah,
about,
look.
is there something like that? We're not opening up for everybody, it's not gonna disturb residents, except maybe 4 days during the year. You know, that's the type of thing that, you know, might be a little bit outside the norm to consider as well, that would be my views.
Do you want, y'all have had this material, do you want to sort of go section by section?
They want us to vote. She won't, let's get to the
I'm trying
chase.
to
They
figure
want us
out-
to vote starting on page
How,
7, with a 1, 2, or a 3 on every one of these 100
yeah,
color
cons-
blocks.
Consensus.
Right,
Yeah.
a consensus to get there. So there's 89 of them that the two groups have to give, the staff's already done it, correct? That's in column, the blue column.
Yeah, that's all the signs.
So we're the green column, they're the yellow column, and it will take 2 hours.
I don't think it'll take that long.
All right, if I don't talk, it'll take an hour to go through and go, are we assigning them per each group, 1, 2, or 3? Is that, just to cut to the chase?
And I don't necessarily need the yellow column filled out and the green column filled out. What we need to get to is that red or orange column filled out. What is the consensus on the priority?
Since we're all together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And some of these have kind of, like water is easy. These have been in there for a while. I think that's an easy, all of these are ones. So I'm happy to copy those over unless, and maybe what we do is we focus on where you think where you may not agree with the priority.
And we're not trying to solve these problems, because I could
No.
talk about line 16 for 2 hours, right? We're not here to discuss the water expansion. It is, do we want to?
Priority setting.
Right, priority setting for staff.
Yeah, I was just gonna make a comment, like you said, Jennifer, we could look at the staff recommendation values and see if there's any areas where we deviate from
Correct.
that, instead of going live up.
So, in general plan goals, what jumps out to me as a top priority is the preference for development with conventional districts as opposed to conditional. And then the next one,
Tell me what line you are.
7.
that is line 7. Line 7 and 8, I'm basically saying to council, it jumps out as a priority because that's also tied to a motion or a decision that we need to make about zoning.
So I'm glad you said that. If you see sort of a hash mark on those
Yeah.
that just means that those are just goals. That there's not, the priorities tell us how quickly you want us to take some action on things.
Oh, okay.
And if it's got a hash mark, that just means it's just there and will always be there.
Got it. Okay.
But we do want to make sure that we're not leaving something out. We also want y'all to hold us accountable. If you say that's really not a priority for us, let's take it out. This is just a good, again, this general plan goals, those are new.
So procedurally, would we, as a council, make a motion on general plan goals to basically say, these are good to go, or?
Just consensus at this point.
Have a straw vote.
Yep,
You know, yeah, are we happy?
yep.
Seems reasonable.
And same thing for the planning board. You get input on this too.
Okay.
My understanding, these have already been stated as goals elsewhere, just pulled into one area.
Pretty much.
One comment I have with regarding to the general plan goals is I could see including something there that is aligned with our active Weaverville or bike ped options, and one that's jumped out at me is line 27 of streets and sidewalks. Develop attainable goals and priorities for town streets related to bike ped accessibility. I could see that jumping into a general plan goal. It's gotten a lot of attention lately, and we've got the Active Weaverville Committee and some other things happening that I think it's kind of rising a little bit more than just being in the streets and sidewalk section.
You could just make it a 1.
But
Instead of two.
Is that talking about when we are, like, we have the opportunity for DOT to build a bike lane or something in, we're gonna redo the road? I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, and like our sidewalk initiatives that we had and continue to do, and, you know, there are other opportunities, just, it seems like that is generating more and more attention, and like, just seems like it's on par with some of the sort of larger themes of the.
What if we put a general goal, provide for recreational opportunities?
Sure.
And then I see those as two different things. One is a goal, we want more recreational opportunities, and then how do we get there is in where you were on the.
Yeah, I could see also being, like, recreation's one component, but also bike and ped accessibility, or, you know, transportation.
Multimodal.
Yeah, multimodal, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear a desire for it to be more generalized than
Yes.
specific.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't think it's recreational. I think you're talking about moving from point A to point B.
And not having to use a car.
Correct.
Or even health and activity focused.
Or you could walk to Lowe's like Mr. McKenna, if he's still in the.
Provide for recreational opportunities and multimodal accessibility,
Transportation.
Connectivity.
modal transportation.
Yeah.
I think is that two different things then? I think it's two different.
I think it's two different things.
And do you want those in the general goals?
Yes.
That's my thought.
How to get around town without a car.
More efficiently than what is currently present.
In that case, is it non-vehicular? Specifically, not talking about cars. Bicycles, vehicles. Non-automotive?
Non-traditional.
Multimodal is adequate, I think, you know, it's.
I think that's.
So we can wordsmith it later.
All right. Provide for recreational opportunities, increase opportunities for non-vehicular multimodal transportation.
That
How are
sounds
we
good.
feeling about that?
Good.
Close it.
And y'all get further opportunity to fine tune this too, so.
It seems like we cleared the water hurdle a moment ago,
Possibly, that's a.
leading us into streets and sidewalks, and I'll just describe a couple of the new entries here. First of which is on line 24, which is conform code to House Bill 926 that removes authority to have different standards from minimum NCDOT standards. We had a conversation at the planning board level and the town council level. This isn't a want to, this is a have to. To the best of my knowledge, we've done all of our homework within chapter 20, but there is some additional items that will need to be touched upon in chapter 24. So that's sort of the reasoning for that new entry, as well as at least staff proposing for it to be a number one priority.
I do have a question about that one.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not that it's the bill so much, but in the planning board, when a developer comes and wants to be annexed, I know Mr. Nagle talked last time about not sure if we want to take the roads over the new development, but if the roads meet DOT standard, I would have a different idea about that. You know, if the development's built, there's 50 houses in there, and they build it to DOT standard upon building the development, I'll be more likely to consider taking the roads in than I would if they were not built to DOT standards. So I didn't know, the planning board, are they holding these developers to DOT standards with the roads or not?
They have to. So
They have
every
to.
road, every subdivision road has to be built to minimum residential subdivision. I can't remember the exact wording of it, but there is a DOT standard that for subdivisions that it just applies.
But Jennifer has it backwards, I think. Our standards for the town were higher.
Or higher, right, I
Yes.
know that.
Right, okay.
I know that.
Okay.
Now, the interesting thing is who's watching,
Correct.
who's inspecting the roads. And so, I think,
May touch upon that while we're literally topic adjacent, because the very next line item suggests a study and development of a policy or code amendment on public street
Yeah.
commitment request for existing subdivision streets.
Okay.
Who's watching when it's under county authority? Probably nobody. Because the county doesn't own roads, they don't maintain roads.
But if we're annexing that property that subdivision is being built in, then who's doing it?
Nobody.
Still
nobody has
nobody.
done it.
But we can require them to be at the level of NCDOT because that is what they're required at. So are you asking there needs to be some sort of procedure of you need your roads tested to ensure that you're at
Well,
NCDOT?
watch
I'm
it be
thinking.
built.
I think our experience has been that some of these annexations were less than DOT
Exactly,
standard.
Yes.
that's my point.
Yes.
So we don't want to get back in that situation where we have developments built, roads built in those developments that are not DOT standard, and then the town of Weaverville is expected to maintain the roads that were not built to standard to start with.
Part of the problem is being able to establish how they were built.
So that's why
Because
we need
there's
to
some
put it
of
on the
these-
front side.
Well, yeah, but some of the ones that, like, at my subdivision, all of the records about how it was built disappeared. Nobody knows where they are.
So Mayor, I received a call today from a resident in Hamburg Crossing who basically informed me that they have discovered the road specs that went into that very small development. And the question to me was, what's the process for getting our qualifications examined by the town?
Not sure.
So right now, you've got some code language. Y'all, the town council adopted, 5 years ago, it was pre-COVID, a process where you said, existing subdivisions, if you want your roads to be taken over, you've got this window of time to come in and apply for what we now call as a public street commitment.
That's right.
And so they were given an opportunity to come in. Some came in, some were rejected because they had a gate on them. Some were, and I'm looking at you because Creekside, some were given an opportunity to do some testing to prove that their roads were built to town standards and declined to do that testing. Same type testing that Maple Trace did however many months ago. So there is a procedure, and now what that ordinance calls for, new development, you have to apply at the very beginning. You have to indicate private roads or public roads. And if they say, ooh, we want public roads, they've got to come to you, just like you get a water request. They've got to come to you on the front end and say, we want our roads to be taken over. And if, at that point, if you say no, then they don't follow, at that time, they would not have followed our town requirements, they would not have gotten town inspections.
So, the representation by Hamburg Crossing is that they believe that their, 1/2 mile of streets meets NCDOT minimum requirements. So would they submit an application to the town manager?
Yeah, hang on one second. So that was existing. What we failed to consider is all of the existing subdivisions that might annex in. We had no reasonable expectation that a 134 lot subdivision was gonna get 100% voluntary annexation petition signed, and they wanted their existing roads that had been built to DOT standards, had not been inspected. We had so right now the ordinance does not address that. And so that's why you see study and develop policy code amendment to deal with those external subdivisions.
So
How
that
are we
needs
gonna
to be
handle that?
An important part of what we're doing
It's in there. It's a number one priority. And James read it a second ago. I'll read it again. Study and develop policy code amendment on public street commitment requests for existing subdivision streets. And that goes along with what we know we have to do anyway. Right now, it is written in terms of town road standards, which we can't have anymore. And so that whole section needs to be drastically amended to be updated for legal compliance, and also this other thing. Yeah.
So I should reply to the residents there and basically tell them to just hold off for a bit? Or,
Send them to staff. That would be,
okay.
yeah, and so we can talk to them and tell them where we are.
Yeah, they believe, again, with the documents that they found, that their street is compliant.
Tell them 5 years ago, there was a 6-month deadline and they missed it. Everybody in town was told, what she's saying is the gap is when we annex a new person. So
Yeah.
this council could do whatever it wants, but John was on it. We sat there and said, all existing, and Pink Fox Lane wanted it, but then they didn't want to move their gate.
Yeah.
Hamburg Crossing had a chance 5 years ago to say we want the roads in. And they didn't apply, that I know of. But they can still apply and go, and what we're missing is this testing procedure. And Dale owned it. I mean, Dale loved it. And became the bane of existence for people. How many core samples every feet at their expense?
Yeah.
And we don't care what the paperwork says, because you can write paperwork up and you can do whatever. It's how you going to prove it. It was not inspected by the town when it was built, so you're going to, and that's was the thing with.
So logically, it says to me that, if an existing subdivision within the town limits approaches us and says, hey, we want to be part of the maintenance plan, we basically say, you need to fund an engineering study that can represent to Public Works that your roads are compliant.
And within a certain time frame. If it was 5 years ago that they were compliant, what is it now?
Yeah, no, that's
So we need
Michael, that's a
some
good
window.
point.
There's third-party engineering firms that do material testing just like that, and that would keep it neutral in terms of, the town's not gonna do the core samples.
Continuing to use Hamburg Crossing as an example, that development's over 20 years old now.
It's why
So they can demonstrate to us that at some point it was built to DOT standards. What we don't know is what, if any, maintenance has been done between then and now.
I'm reminded of how difficult these meetings are and how exciting they are, because every one of these things, we can go down an hour or two conversation, every single one. And so I'm gonna, with your permission, I'm gonna try to keep us, like,
Don't
focus
solve
on the
each project
priority.
tonight.
Yeah.
Or we're never going to get
This
the
is a
89 line.
Thumbs up, yeah, thumbs up that this is a number one priority, and I've got it showed there.
Anything else under streets and sidewalks that
I have a question about prioritization.
Okay,
That if we have an item on this list that references a strategic plan goal, should that not increase its priority?
we did look at how far down the strategic plan goal it was, and so we did, if it was a number one priority, it does have a pretty good, probably a number one priority on here.
Yeah, so like this one is a 1.5 and it's got a 2 next to
Yeah,
it, so it's in this similar range.
This one's got a 3, and it's strategic plan goal number 5.7, 5.8.
Mhm.
That one's 36
So it's,
months.
yeah, so these have been moved up a little bit.
Numbers or timeframe.
Numbers are time frame. One is a year, 2 is the next year, 3 is 2 years out.
And 0 says get rid of it.
Yeah, let me explain that one if anybody has questions on that. What we have found is that the bike ped plan, it does have 13-ish catalyst projects.
10 to be exact.
Oh, 10, okay. So 10 catalyst projects, 9 of which are on DOT roads, which means that we can't, other than encouraging DOT to you know, do work do work on that DOT road and therefore put the sidewalk in, we don't have a lot of control over. And so we dropped that off of this area. That doesn't mean that active Weaverville plan, bike ped plan is not important. We're just trying to make sure that the action steps are where they need to be, if that makes sense.
I'd like to see line item 27 bumped to a 1, and if we're horse trading here, I could see line item 26 being bumped to a 3. I think attainable goals and priorities for town streets related to bike ped accessibility. You know, it's related to the bike ped plan, which is now almost 3 years old, and just seems like that's something that we should strive a little harder to kind of really get moving a little bit. And then regarding the line item 26, you know, I guess in my years on the planning board, that never really came up for discussion or to attention, and so I guess I'm not understanding the sensitivity there, and I think it probably can be accomplished in 3 years rather than 2.
Everybody okay with line 26 being a 3 and line 27 being a 1?
Yes. Yep.
My only concern though is with this new development that's coming, I think we need to keep that kind of moving towards the forefront.
Which new one?
We need new development, number 26. So I think we don't need to put it off too long when the new development's
You
coming.
want to just leave that as a 2?
I would rather leave it as a 2.
Okay, sure. Everybody okay continuing with the staff recommendation on the others? And line 32 is new. We added that one to say study and improve town code affairs with an emphasis on emergency.
While Jennifer's doing that, I'm going to skip ahead to the next portion, which is housing. We found one item that is the number 1 priority, and that is consider broadening allowable housing types in residential districts by allowing multifamily or establishing new districts. And then the notes for that one, you'll find the planning board has already reviewed and offered a recommendation on R6 and R10 zoning. That public hearing was held on December 9. If I remember correctly, an action is currently eligible on that item, so I think we made the fair assumption that that continues to be a number 1 priority and is literally
Almost
an
done.
agenda item later this evening.
What's driving line 37? Why is that even on there? Is that required?
Affordable housing. That's really the only driver is to expand. I know we had somebody come in and talk, this has been several years ago, that was concerned that maybe manufactured housing is an area where you could have some better accessibility to affordable
But
housing.
so what, does everybody, can you, we're gonna go down a rabbit hole. Are you talking about a mobile home park, which we have 2 areas already? Or are you talking about somebody putting a mobile home on their own lot, which is 1 mobile home?
This would be an individual mobile home on a lot. Not mobile home parks are currently not allowed in any zoning district.
Other than what we did.
The mobile home overlay district is specific to a single unit on a single lot.
Right, but we have 2 mobile home parks in our town.
Yes.
And we've limited it to those 2 locations. Could be undone, but we've limited it to those.
Correct.
So what zones can I put a mobile home in right now? On my own lot, if I have a 1 acre lot, can I put a single mobile home on my property?
If it is in the mobile home overlay district.
Right,
If it is
which
not,
is just those 2 lots
Right.
almost.
And a cluster of about
Yeah.
10 properties to the extreme north of
To
town.
the north, right.
Yeah.
So on my property, I'm on an acre road, I can't put a mobile home in.
This has been carried on, this has been added and carried forward for several years, and if it's something that you want to drop off, we certainly can drop it off.
With the understanding that we cannot exclude
Yes.
manufactured housing from the entirety of the jurisdiction.
No, but we've got where they can be built, or where they can be put on
Yes, sir.
already. No, I just want a clarification. Now I know why it's good.
James, why is there a mobile home on our street?
It's the one in the wedge between Lake Shore and Highland.
It's, that falling down garage, it's behind that.
My assumption would be it was placed there probably prior to the town enacting zoning, which is only in 1978. While we're talking about statutory limitations related to manufactured housing, we also can't have regulations related to value or age on those. It's probably just been there for some time.
That's a long time for a mobile home to be there and still be standing.
Is everybody okay just duplicating staff's recommendation or priorities on these?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. It's under general policy.
So line items 41 through 47 are each holdovers from the previous version of this table. So I don't have anything new to describe there unless something else you
I had one thought as more just about wordage in 42, continue to annex properties. Should we change that to accept voluntary annexations?
Sure.
or continue to consider annexation.
Consider, why don't we do consider voluntary annexation?
Yeah. Just so,
Yep. Of properties along town borders in order to impose town's land use regulations. Got it.
awesome.
Line item 48 deals with hazard mitigation. You'll find that that's also an important component of the strategic plan as well. And the Buncombe County, Buncombe-Madison Hazard Mitigation Plan is actively being updated, and when that gets done, we'll make sure that the important components of that are also taken into consideration by the town's land use regulations. We had hazard mitigation or a line item similar to hazard mitigation as a 3, and that was from all the way back in 2019, but of course that was before the hurricane. We'll have a tremendous amount of information that will come out of that, I imagine, as it relates to the areas within the floodplain and landslide areas that could be incorporated into our ordinances.
A lot of these upfront items are mostly reminders to staff that we need to continue to have good relations with our MSD folks and our DOT folks and our county folks. And of course that's happening, but this is a good place to park that to make sure it's written somewhere.
Line item 49 is also new, and that is seek adoption of local bill to remove satellite annexation cap. It's our understanding that Senator Mayfield is actively working on this, and similar to down zoning, like we'll get to in a moment as well. That's a very important component. As you'll recall, the consideration of the 10 Silverwood Farms annexation that took us up to around 9% with a statutory cap of 10. If there is the ability for the town to have that removed, like so many other jurisdictions have, that is very valuable to consider.
Line item 47, it's got a 1 on it that would indicate that it be addressed in 12 months. This is Eller Cove, Ring Street, Greenway, Quarry Road. I don't think that those are really on the agendas for the next 12 months. Wouldn't we just want to go ahead and make it a 2 or a 3? Because it's just not going to be this year that we're going to get.
Fine.
Yeah.
There is some planning work that goes into that, and so just because it's listed as a 2, that doesn't mean that staff's not necessarily working on
I
it.
would go 2 then on it.
All right.
I don't think it's an urgent need.
I'm seeing consensus on that. Okay. We can't have all ones. I think that's what you're,
Right.
and I appreciate that.
I might go to the planning board next month and go, oh my goodness, we've got 50 of them. What am I gonna do?
If they were all one, we
Except
wouldn't
for
have
all-
to do this next year.
That's true. Line item 50 and line item 51, this is a good illustration of tying into your strategic plan goals. These have also been on your comprehensive plan as well, but you see that line 50 is listed as a number 1 priority and 51 is listed as a number 2, even though it's under the same strategic goal. We just felt like the conversations were likely in the first year with the agreements probably following. So that's just a way we kind of parse that out in some cases. Obviously, if there's a need to go ahead and negotiate quicker than that, we're going to do that. We have certainly accomplished many number 2 priorities in any particular year.
Quick question on 51. So a practical interlocal agreement would perhaps allow the town of Weaverville to take over inspections from the county?
That would actually be the removal of an existing
Yeah.
interlocal
The other
agreement,
way.
allowing the county to perform building inspections within our municipal limits.
Oh, it's the reverse then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right now, we do have that contract in place, and I think we're about 3 years into about a 5-year agreement with them.
Okay.
So the timing is actually good. We do think that we're getting hints that the county is trying to sort of divest its workload with the municipalities or ask for us to pay a whole bunch of money for them to continue to do that work. And so that's why I think having this conversation this next year is going to be important, because that's going to set the stage for what do we need to plan for as far as services and staffing to support those.
Okay, thank you.
Another question on 52, is that something the staff should be focused on, or is that a private business opportunity? It stood out as something that feels off.
Is it public transit? No, that's the question.
That's the question.
Yeah.
Is it?
And what I was doing is I was forwarding them an email I got back in December, because I had reached out to Asheville Transit, and they said at that point in time, we were not on the route, and they were not looking to add us to the route. We're still trying to, and because what I initiated the conversation for was part of the strategic plan, as well as the hospital coming here, trying to have some other means of transportation for people to come and go in that area, as well as looking at extending sidewalks and bus stops in that. But again, we want to circle back to that, because that was their answer on December 4th.
So perhaps it's a 3 versus 0?
Well, it could be though, that we may look at some type of public transit just around Weaverville, right? Because I think we talked about that once before, about possibly having a shuttle that shuttles you from the hospital to different places in town. So maybe that's a discussion to have.
And the WEDAC committee has also entertained that. There hasn't been any action, but it's been discussed as an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, if that's something that councilman would like to add, I mean, we need to figure out where that goes. I mean, 'cause that's not something that had been brought to staff previously to be able to look at that. We were looking at it from the aspect of the liability that's already out there with the actual regional transit system versus the town taking on that liability.
I don't think it's so much of us going to Asheville as much as moving transportation to key points in town. I think
Yeah.
Seems like it could be a 3-year horizon, though, in my mind. I mean, as the hospital gets built up, we're years out from that, we're years out from the ball crank, maybe a year more. So I think, you know, we could let it percolate and see what kind of need arises.
So I'm hearing a 3 priority. Okay. Enhance planning efforts in the floodplain areas to reduce local floods. That was probably not a huge, I mean, that could go to a 3.
One adjustment just to capture the conversation for 52, because it was no longer just about between Weaverville and Nashville. There was discussion about it being in Weaverville.
Yeah.
Still think it's
Broad.
a 3, but just to update it for the broader conversation.
Weaverville show. I like it. Scott, try it. Local public transit. Okay.
54, I don't want to skip 53. I'm skipping it for the moment. If we are looking at partnering with DOT, potentially that emergency lane down the center, that might be parking on one side, so that feels connected to the potential for increasing a way to drive down Main Street. If you got rid of parking on one side of the street, you might have an emergency lane. So I'm not sure if that, how I feel about that, but that is a question.
Also, we have planted seeds with our 3 main churches in terms of transforming their parking lots to use that parking lot. We do have one expression of interest.
Yeah, there are several examples of pretty nice public-private partnerships with churches or big businesses with large parking lots where it becomes essentially a public parking lot during the day or any hours unless there's a private need for it, like a private event, in which case they could close it to public parking. But absolutely, if I know we have had some conversations, it's been years ago, about some of that, and they were, the churches were not ready to do that. I know West Funeral Home, they've got several parking spaces that they allocate for Twisted Laurel, for instance, and so that is a nice way that Twisted Laurel has provided for their employees. But the funeral home parking lot is also pretty close. It could be approached by that too. We always hear that we have a parking problem. And if you are not willing to walk more than 20 feet, there is a parking problem, but there is parking.
You know, without going too far down that rabbit hole, who does the parking problem affect? And that was what we had tried to do previously, was tell businesses solve their own problem, right? So now you go, get rid of half the parking on the street, they're going to scream harder to go, who does it affect? And it just became a circular thing. We got tired of it when an employee would park in the lot all day instead of, and we did have one of the churches said their employees could park out there. So we gave up. Previous council said, it affects these 12 businesses on Main Street who don't want to be part of the solution. So Ronnie parked his pickup truck there 24/7. You know, so whatever. How are we going to solve it? Take the nature center. Some resident told me, pave over the nature center and make it park with a straight face. Okay, because they don't use the nature center like it. So that's, you know, as far as our priorities with staff and whatnot, you go, it's probably not going to be solved in our lifetime. We only have so much space. And they can do things. The private, public, you know, there's your shuttle, right? You can shuttle the workers. If they show up, we'll shuttle them from, you know, the empty lot behind Tractor Supply. You know, that's a bigger problem to go. How that sat there since John Henley was on council, and undeveloped. And what can we do to get that developed? Well, if we have a parking lot, we can have a shuttle that shuttle people to downtown. No parking on downtown.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Have these traffic problems go through downtown.
And then you got your shuttle.
You can get a fire truck down Main Street.
From downtown.
So we bump that to a 3?
Please.
Yeah.
So parking is a 3.
Yeah.
Okay. 0.
Well, it's going to be a 3 and the next council will bump it to a 3 again.
Yeah, that's right.
I will say we do, there are some of these items that are a 3 this year, a 3 last year, a 3 the year before, and those are some of the ones that we have kind of identified and dropped off several of those, because if it's not gonna rise up to the next level, then it doesn't need to be on the list. Everybody okay with 55 and 56 being 3s as staff recommended?
I think 55 is probably more important than 3. I just don't know how to do it. You know, we talked about that, and that was, Jennifer's brought it up, and so have other people, that the fact that the hospital will be paying no town property taxes, but they're going to require services. What are we doing in that corridor to drive some revenue from town that's going to pay for the services?
I think approaching the hospital about this sort of thing might be an appropriate thing to do.
I'd like to see that one moved up.
Okay, 2
One.
or a 1?
At this point, 1.
Y'all okay with the 1?
Sure.
All right.
I will mention, it's fairly easy to interrogate artificial intelligence with respect to the predicted needs of the hospital with respect to satellite businesses. And Jennifer and I have gone through that analysis to see what it could be. And, to Andrew's point, it looks like those would all be either professional services, support services for the hospital, or essentially outpatient clinics.
We want $6 million MRI machines,
Yeah,
not in the hospital.
right. Imaging.
All right, I moved on to the next section. Anything else to add we're still under general policy matters, anything else?
Seeing none, hearing none, on to the general heading of land development regulations. The first few I'll provide brief explanations for. Line number 60 is review residential uses for consistency and compatibility with policy directives. That again is its own agenda item later this evening, so perhaps we hold a conversation on that for that time. Something I mentioned a moment ago, monitor any changes to down zoning restriction and report if municipal authority is reestablished. About a year ago, blanket down zoning was outlawed in North Carolina. Some jurisdictions have been able to accomplish local bills that have restored their down zoning authority. Speaking of Senator Mayfield, we know that she has filed such a bill to restore down zoning to Buncombe County and all the municipalities therein. The status of that bill, its likelihood of succeeding, we do not know that. But that, just like the satellite annexation cap, is a pretty big deal and a game changer as it relates to our ordinances. Study and consider regulations that encourage neighborhood parks and open space. Implement regulations on crypto mining and data centers. We were hoping to take that up with the planning board last week, but they got snowed out. And then lastly, as it relates, I skipped one, implementation of regulations related to mobile vendors. We currently regulate mobile food vendors, but not mobile vendors of other items, so we've been treating them as mobile food vendors. Perhaps there's a different set of standards that need to be considered for that. And now lastly, study and consider a Greenway overlay district. And that sort of closely relates to a few of your strategic plan goals. And I know especially at the planning board level, especially as we continue to move out Reeves Creek and annex properties along Reeves Creek, it may be a good idea for the town to consider some regulations that would require developers to provide an easement for a future greenway, should it ever make it out that far. Any questions on those brief explanations of the new number 1 items under land development regulations? Any disagreement with the scores provided by staff? I've seen a lot of no's, looking good so far.
Just, you can keep going down the list?
Yep.
Okay.
But if you have a specific question related to a line item, I'm happy
He wants to move it up.
to know that.
It's just, item 66, which you're just gonna get into, so,
Mhm.
just, how much can we do that right now with the mandate that we can't, down zone? So it seems like that's kind of stuck in the mud right now.
That's
I
right,
say,
number 2.
I say down zoning, and I'll put that in English for folks who may not know what I'm talking about. If we change it to a zoning district that allows them to do more things and or develop at a higher density, we can still do that. Can we take a piece of property that's right now zoned R2 and zone it R1? Not without the permission of every single property owner affected by that map or text amendment.
But are you talking about here what we did at the corner of Reeves Creek and Merriman Avenue with my father-in-law's property, which was just zoned wrong?
Yes.
It's multifamily, it was zoned commercial, and we fixed it,
Yes, that is a good example.
which we should. We have there are pockets in town where the zoning is wrong. The problem is, if that lay dormant for how long? It happened with the dentist downtown.
If a non-conforming use is decommissioned, what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, it goes out dormant,
Is
shut down.
abandoned for 180 days.
So if those apartments had been vacant for 180 days and somebody caught on, they would go to my father-in-law and say, well, people can't live there anymore, you gotta build a dentist office there, because that's what it's zoned. So zoning these things need to be fixed that are wrong, and I believe that's what that's saying. Am I close?
Yes.
Okay.
Just a quick clarifying. For areas outside of town currently, if we say we want it to be R2, but then we say we want it to be R1, that's not a down zone, because it's just an aspirational plan, but we actually haven't changed it. That would be allowed.
Let me, when you're saying out of town, that's,
So they're not in the town.
right, so we have no jurisdiction over that.
But there has to be
Oh,
annexed,
okay.
I think.
It's a voluntary annexation
And
petition.
a consent to whatever the zoning is.
And we could change what our ideal plan is for those, and state that, and it's still not announced.
Yes.
Okay, just clarify.
Because they're gonna come in conditional zoning, or you're gonna vote, like, especially islands, right? Where there is no zoning, it's in the county. So if it's straight up in the county, and we don't have the ETJ anymore, right? So there is no, to Scotty's point, we don't have any zoning, and they're gonna go, I wanna put 577 multi-use on this 100 acres. And then we carve out or work on conditional zoning, or we make it fit. So, yeah, if the county's, in theory, lacks, they're presenting to us and you first to go, I want to do R1 project in the county. There's no, county to us with an annexation is not down.
We've got a conditional district that was put in place on Brown Street for essentially a redevelopment of the dormitory of the Weaver College.
Oh, is he going to do something with that?
No, I mean, that, as soon as that conditional district got into place, the developer walked away. And so now we've got a conditional district that only allows this one specific use that we now need to rezone to an R district to make it more marketable and usable.
21 Parker Cove is probably a little fresher on everyone's mind, and that's the same scenario where a conditional district was achieved, the developer immediately walked away, And now we have a piece of legislation that says you can build this and only this.
Right, needs to be fixed.
And encountering another person that will do this and only this is incredibly unlikely.
So down zoning, you know, and we'll see if, what they do with the legislation, and he said, down zoning without consent isn't advantageous to the town, it's disadvantageous to the landowner. So it depends where you fall. So it is, you can't take something and make it worth, so we had cascading zoning for everybody who wasn't here or doesn't remember. If you were zoned industrial in the town of Weaverly, you could build whatever you wanted on it, straight down. So we're not putting another factory in the front lawn of ABM, that's not gonna happen. But that's all we can do with the current zoning, is that correct? It's zone industrial. 10 years ago, we could have put affordable housing on there, or a law office for commercial, or whatever. So town voted to undo all that, so you can only do what your zoning says. State said that's not, without the permit, now they're not fixing everything we did, but without 100% of the landowners agreeing to it, you cannot take and devalue it. So if R12 is more valuable, you can't turn into R1 without the landowner's permission, or you can't take that way. So that's, we'll see. Is somebody on the existing staff or council talking to Julie versus ex-council members? Okay.
I'm gonna duplicate staff's ratings on these last few, unless you tell me otherwise.
On 68, we had talked about this before. Was there a need for us to actually have regulations for grading?
No, we can. So the county regulations, the sedimentation erosion control kicks in at 1 acre. And so the county is issuing those permits and doing that part. We have an opportunity, if we wanted to do something small on a smaller lot size and regulate grading on a half acre.
And who's going to do it?
So, but it's weird because it's between a half an acre and an acre we can regulate. Anything less than a half an acre we can't. Nobody can touch. But then the county's not going to regulate that or enforce that for us. So we would have to have the staff to really issue those permits and do all of that enforcement on that between that half acre and acre. And so we just have not seen a big enough problem that we felt like was worth bringing that on.
That's a 0.
You want to take it off? 3?
Fine.
Definitely not 2.
All right, 3. Ooh, wireless telecommunication facility regulations. I will admit that when we did the 160D, big changeover, this was an area where we just did not have time to fully do that. It's a pretty complicated area of the law where there's a lot of preemption by state regulations. And so we just have not really looked at that. We haven't had any real need to either. It wouldn't hurt my feelings if that goes to a 3, but I know that it does need to be done.
Is that a cell phone tower you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why don't you guys pretend I'm in the 3rd grade, will you?
We try to match the
Cell phone tower.
the statutory language.
Yeah.
What the hell is she talking about? I know, pretty good lease.
All right, we're gonna do 233 unless y'all tell me otherwise. And that's really it. The next bits are just things that they're almost direction to the planning board that when they review a plan, they need to consult these things. And then the final maintenance of plan and regulations, this just sort of reminds us that we need to keep this thing legally compliant, reviewing it holistically. We put 2031 as the next required look at, and we did that too. James had a good point. Let's do that in 31. At that point, we'll have good 2030 census data.
Is that an election year for us?
I have no idea.
Somebody do the math, by the way.
Yes.
Right, if we got a new council?
Well, if we do it early in the year.
Jennifer, back on 71, we
Yep.
spent nearly 2 years figuring all of that out and then gave our recommendations to town council. What ended up happening with that? Why don't we have any
Downzoning.
regulations?
Downzoning absolutely will prevent us from putting any regulations in place. And so that's why you'll see that note. Actually, you don't see it, but.
Town council decided to hold on the issue prior to that legislation taking effect, what keeps me up at night when I'm having trouble sleeping. If we were to have passed that legislation, the state statute went back in time 6 months. So we would have had to turn around and undone everything that was.
We're waiting for the state to decide what to do.
I did receive an email today from Airbnb Public Policy. Did
We all
you get that?
We all did.
Apparently they were aware of this meeting.
Interesting.
I was like, why do you think this is on our agenda? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Do you know something I don't know?
That's a good answer.
I think I.
Yes.
Both boards will see this again in a sort of a packaged plan. So if your individual board wants to, tweak, you will have an opportunity to do that, as will town council before adoption. But we're pretty close.
Mr. Mayor and Mr. Chair, am I to gather that we are onward to agenda item number 3, which is a discussion on the proposed new residential districts of R6 and R10? It looks that way. So in your packet of information, you'll find a staff report that was originally prepared in August of 2019 and amended for a substantially similar purpose in June of 25. So we've been talking about the possibility of creating a higher density single-family residential zoning district for quite some time. I wanted to dust off this old staff report because it did a good job, in my estimation, of providing some examples that I know Vice Mayor Chase was asking for when the public hearing was held related to this matter, and we'll get into those in just a moment. In the staff report, I'll sum it up as this, and I'll hopefully tell a substantially similar story to what I told the planning board at that time. I don't pretend to be qualified to determine whether or not something's too dense. I am attempting to make the argument that instead of doing so many special use permits or conditional districts for this purpose, we can create those conditions within a traditional zoning district through these proposed text amendments. That being said, we're going to analyze the existing conditions of 5 developments that are in existence due to some combination of a special use permit or a conditional district, depending on when those developments were approved. Going to page 19 of your packet, and on the screens you'll find an illustration or a GIS image of Lily Farm Cove. The setbacks for this conditional district were established at 25 in the front, 6 on the sides, and 10 in the rear. Next, you'll find Lakeside Meadows, which a lot of people will call Brown Street Extension. That was a special use permit from 2016, and it has established setbacks as 15 in the front, 5 on the sides, and 10 in the rear. Next, we have Creekside Village, which is a special use permit going back to 2008. Their front yard setback sides are 5, their rears are 10. And lastly, we have Weaver Village, which was subject to a conditional district with a site-specific development plan, and that basically allowed 0 lot line construction within the residential portion of that development. And then lastly, you have Partridge Berry, which was a special use permit in 2016 as well. 15 in the front, 5 on the sides, and 10 in the rear. The reason we pulled these were they were at least similar to some of the reduced setbacks that were contemplated by the R6 and the R10 zoning district. One thing that I will note specifically, because it was an important topic of conversation at the planning board level, neither R6 or R10 proposes any reduction in the front yard back of 30 feet. And the reason for that, and it's been my experience, these developments that have reduced front yard setbacks, they immediately fill the garages up with stuff, park their vehicles in some combination of the driveway or the road. We thought it was important to retain that 30-foot setback to provide for enough parking in front of the home should things trend in that direction, as they oftentimes do. So that's a bit of an introduction and some examples on this individual agenda item, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have. I'll also note at the beginning on page 24, you'll find the planning board recommendation for R6. On page 31, you'll find the planning board recommendation for R10. R6 was unanimous. R10 was a majority of 3-2 from the planning board. Again, happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
And R6 maintained all of the setbacks in the other R1, R2 district with the 30 in the front, 10 on the side and the rear. The R10, the proposed R10, kept the 30 in the front, 10 in the back, but did reduce the side setback down to 6 for R10.
So is there a possibility that the new R6, R10 could happen like in the downtown core area, similar to Lakeside Meadows or?
The short answer to that question is yes. I'll pick on myself. There's not a thing in the world anybody can do to prevent the property owner at 18 Highland Street from submitting a zoning map amendment to the town that changes it from R1 to I1. Can I guarantee you that none of this zoning will ever be applicable downtown? I simply cannot do that.
I'll make a note that there's plenty of parcels that are R10 or R6 already downtown. I mean, my lot width is 75, Michael's is 50. I mean, there's roughly 20% of the downtown district is plotted at a 50-foot lot width. So it's extensive throughout Weaverville.
So my concern about having the 6-foot setback on the side is the fire risk. And there have been multiple issues all throughout the United States, one in Raleigh, one in Surf City, I believe it was, North Carolina, where one of the homes caught on fire, and it was like a domino effect going down because of the proximity these houses were to each other. And I know that there are minimal standards for building code that says, okay, if we have houses within certain distances of each other, and if you don't mind, Mr. Davis, you'll tell me if I'm wrong, they have to use special materials that are less flammable to have that structure be able to stand for an hour. That does not mean that structure will not catch on fire. It means that the skeletal frame of that house has to be able to withstand a fire for an hour. Is that correct?
Fire resistant.
Fire resistant. So if we're talking about these setbacks of 6 feet, 5 feet, whichever, as being more affordable, it's not more affordable because you have to put different types of building materials into those structures that increase the cost of building that home.
Is that what we experienced in the examples that James shared for those same expenses on areas?
I don't know what happened there. I just know that with the building code that we have, if we're not building things in such high density, then we don't have to use these more or less flammable materials. But when we increase the density, then those less density materials have to be used, which increases the cost of building that property. So if the idea of making things more dense is to change the affordability, that is not the case.
I would say, without having all the details of the costs, you might be able to get more units on a parcel and have the, perhaps the building cost be more expensive on some level, but how that relates, it might be more expensive, but you still sell more units. So I don't think that's the purview of the planning board to figure all that out, but I hear the concern.
So let's just take an example. You have a lot in Weaverville that is 1 acre. And that acre sells for $150,000, which is not unreasonable in today's market. You can either put 8 houses on that lot, or you can put 10 houses on that lot. If you put 10 houses on that lot, then you've got these setbacks of 6 feet. Okay, that only changes the price of that property. If it's equally distributed to each lot on that 1 acre, it only changes the cost of that lot per house, $3,000. So if you have 8 houses on that lot, the cost is $18,000 if you divide it up. If it's 10 houses on that acre lot, it's $15,000 on that lot. So it only changes the cost of the land used for that building plot, $3,000.
If I'm a developer and I'm gonna build 2 more homes, how much more am I gonna get by
But
selling
see,
them?
our job is to not have the pockets of the developer. So that's who gets the money out of this, is the developer. So when we have 8 houses, okay, we have 8 houses, but if the developer can put 2 more houses, that's more money in the developer's pocket, but that still does not change the price that any of those homes are gonna sell for. All that does is increase the profitability of the builder.
Well, I mean, it reduced it, you had said $3,000, and it reduced it some.
$3,000.
Right.
So you have a house
That's
that
not
costs.
none.
No, but you have a house that costs $350,000.
None of this feels, well, I hear the concern about the flammability. And is 6 feet normal in our area, in our county as a setback? Is that something you've seen elsewhere? Are there fire concerns that they've had?
There are codes that handle that. That is a building code. And it comes out of the building code, and it does dictate the materials that you can, the closer you get, the more restrictive the materials become. They become more expensive. So, yes, it does get more expensive the closer you get.
So you've got, these are good examples. You got 0 setback over in Weaver Village. Partridge Berry's got a 5. Lakeside's a 5. Creekside, not all, I mean, you can drive through Creekside, it's just that 2 strips. Compared to 10, right? So we've got 5s already. We got 6s already. To Jennifer's point, if I'm staring at Partridge Berry, first, were they affordable? I don't know what those sold for. There's nothing affordable in Weaverville, so we can forget that.
It's a moot point.
Agreed. It's 100% a moot point. There's nothing affordable. And right next to, Partridge Berry, it was Barclay Terrace, and we didn't take that zoning on because the planning board was very concerned about a 3-foot setback. I don't know what it was. You could put, I owned one. You put your arm out the window, you could touch, 2 neighbors could touch. Okay, so I don't know that they built those stayed in the county, so I don't know what the county said Barclay Terrace had to be built, as Jennifer's talking about, the different materials, so it's a slower burn. And it was in our earlier point about affordable, and every council has struggled with this. There's nothing we're going to do for affordable housing. So the question becomes higher density. Typically, I really liked what happened with Lily Farms. That was, they had put in some requirements for lower income for so many years, and I think Lily Farm Cove, had a sidewalk in it, maybe not a far enough setback for the parking, but I thought that was a really good example of what we could do, and it had a 6-foot setback.
That was a mountain housing opportunity project, and so having debated some of these in the past iterations of council, partnering with Mountain Housing Opportunities or another regional affordable housing, I think accommodations, that makes sense to me.
They told you that, if you remember,
Mhm.
y'all invited them to a town council meeting to say, how can we help you? And they said less, an easier review process. And this would accomplish that, because that was done as a conditional district, if I remember correctly. This project, if it were zoned R10, it would probably be permitted, permitted by right with a major subdivision.
With a
approval.
30-foot front.
With a 30-foot, yeah, with a 30-foot. But I think that they could probably comply with that.
Do we have sidewalks still, or did we take that out? Are sidewalks required in all?
You do.
Okay, so that's not been removed.
Is there
Well, I
any-
know that the building code has minimal standards. And minimum standards means this is, you know, you can't go less restrictive than a minimum standard. But we can be more restrictive than a minimum standard. And I'm just concerned that if we start allowing houses to be built anywhere, including James's example over on Highland Street, that we can get these houses very close together that can create a safety issue for the people living there. And I don't know if anybody in this room has experienced a house fire. I have experienced a house fire. And I know what that's like, worried about my house being on fire and the house next door, which happens to be my parents' home, worried about it catching on fire, and it was more than 12 feet apart. It was more like 30-some feet apart. But there was still that concern for that. So I don't want to create a situation in this town, because we're so worried about getting things so jammed close together, that we are creating a safety issue for the citizens that live there and the firefighters that are fighting fires. And we're talking about 4 feet. We're only talking about 4 feet per lot on the sides. That's all it is. And 4 feet per lot, creating a safety hazard to me is not worth it. And I'd rather go above the minimum standard and have 10-foot setbacks on the rear and sides as a minimum standard instead of 6 feet. Even though we've already done it before, we can't undo what these houses have already done. We can make a standard now that we're going to err on the side of safety. The residents are going to be living in these homes, and the firefighters that are going to be fighting fires in these homes.
To this point, Fire Marshal Davis, do you consider the current projects that have been built with 6-foot setbacks, do you consider those to be fire hazards?
If I had to fight a fire on a house with a 6-foot setback or a 10-foot setback, I think 10-foot setback, I mean, it's safer. We're not going to stop progression, but if I have to pick a fire to fight, which we get to go to all of them, the ones that are spread apart further makes our life easier.
Well,
Mr. Davis, do you have the choice of putting your family in a home that had a 6-foot setback or a 10-foot setback? What would it be?
So to Councilor's point in some ways, if this is not an option, it would not be administrative. If you take R10 off, every single development that is asking for a smaller setback would come before council. That's really the only discussion.
I'm not asking for R10 to be off. You can still have R10 and have 10-foot setbacks. The difference was being able to have the garage on the front. That's the difference. And so when you put a garage in a home, you also have to have a firewall built on that garage for the safety of that home. So that, again, increases the cost. So if you're trying to get R10 because it's an affordability thing, it doesn't hold water.
Well, that's what I was saying. It's not, there's no affordability, it's a lack of inventory. There's not enough housing. So density drives further housing. And sure, you probably like to fight fire on my house. I got a 500-foot setback. So, but not everybody can afford to live on 20 acres.
We just have to keep the woods from catching.
No, that's, yeah, well, Helene helped there. Yeah, so nobody wants to build anything. I mean, we had this discussion before with one-way entrances in subdivisions, right? So you know, where are we at on that? Can you have a one-way entrance? So we did away with the two-way entrances. Would you rather have a two-way or a one-way? Two-way, of course. So,
Two-way.
right, of course. So I'm not, what Jennifer's saying, it's up to us to sit there and go, what is it? We don't have the building, right? We have nothing to do with the building codes. We can't say if they're at a 5 foot, you gotta put in, everything's gotta be in hardy board instead of knotty pine. So it burns slower. Understanding everything we do, you still have conditional zoning, to James's point. Somebody can come and say, I wanna put a factory there, I wanna go right downtown. We can make it a historic district, and it's still, everything this council does can be undone. I'm not saying don't do it, because I would like to see us have a historic district downtown where nothing changes for the people that live in a certain block radius. I own a piece of property in town of Salisbury, and I don't know how they've done it, but I can't paint the front of the house a certain color, right? It's a historic district. Now, we knew that going in when we bought it. I don't know that any town council is gonna undo it, but I would love to see us have a historic district that limited lot size and things, but
I guess I have a more philosophical question regarding the character of downtown, the draw for people that live in town to come downtown, tourists to come to downtown. And Lakeside Meadows seems like it doesn't really fit the character. I mean, it's already there, it is what it is. But we know it has issues. It doesn't even have sidewalks. And for a fairly recent development, that's pretty sad. So is there a way where density is done in a way that is in the character of kind of the central core of downtown? Or if something like Lakeside Meadows, just straight out of the R6, R10 zoning, is maybe pushed out to more one of the growth areas, and I don't know if there's a way to separate that. And then the other part is, we can't really use zoning to dictate code, because code is state mandated. So that's a challenge.
But you can't make it less restrictive, you can make it more restrictive. So the code says that you can have 5 feet, you can have, this is building products. We can say, well, we want 10 feet, and as a town, we can say that.
On your setbacks.
On the setbacks.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's really what my question is. If we have the reduced setbacks, which I'm not necessarily opposed to, especially if there's an opportunity to provide a higher quality material, more fire resistant or durable material.
So far, we've been talking about the text of these two new districts. And once you get those in place, the next step is mapping it. And so that's something that none of this gets applied until somebody asks you to say, I'm newly annexing property in the Reeves Creek area, and I really would like R6. And then you would have, the planning board's gonna have to vet that zoning against their comprehensive land use plan. Town council will have a public hearing on it, and y'all ultimately get to decide whether R6 is the right zoning for it. So it doesn't just randomly appear on your map. You do have control over where R6 and R10 go.
For example, we could say we only want R10 within a certain radius of a fire station to mitigate any potential response times or concerns.
And 100% correct, and previous council completely screwed up on the apartments.
Yeah.
In the cow pasture, we made R12, you were with it, we made R12 because we lost the ETJ. Right, like the same council I think forgot what we did. The R12 was for the ETJ. When I voted for that, not in my wildest dreams were we gonna put apartments right there. That's the gateway to Weaverville, I was told by a bunch of people, that, you know, be careful what we do with our property, because we're the gateway to Weaverville. We put cheap apartments at the gateway to Weaverville, because it was, you know, we gave them the conditional zoning, right? That meeting, we made a mistake, it was industrial. She asked for R12, we should have said no, and we should have negotiated conditional zoning. And what happens, so you go the other side of Lake Louise and Greg Phillips project, that was the longest ZBA meeting in the history of mankind, because he wanted to put 31 houses up there. And he checked all the boxes and that it was gonna happen. Unfortunately, it got negotiated, but after that, the council, we asked Jennifer, who made that rule? You know, there's nothing we can do. Doug Jackson kept saying, there's nothing we can do. Well, backwards, but don't we write the zoning? Yes. And we changed it a little bit, made staff's job terrible. In a perfect world, all zoning would be conditional zoning. But staff, we'd have to hire 3 or 4 more people. So his point earlier was anybody can ask for conditional zoning anywhere, no matter what we do. No matter what we do, somebody can come to this council and say, I want 0 setback lines between Church Street and College Crescent on the Hussey property, and I want to put 100. And an existing council may say yes.
And that's a great point, just sort of a little history lesson there. You're right. I mean, after that, we went all the way to almost every bit of development was conditional zoning, which then bottlenecks everything because it's such a timely, costly process for even like a resident, just a house. And so we've been, one of the things that we have had as a priority, y'all kind of checked off on it a minute ago, was a preference for conventional zoning by a conventional district versus zoning by a conditional district, which is all subject to negotiation.
The only bad thing though, when you surrender your conditional zoning, you also lose some of your negotiation power.
You totally do.
100%.
Not just a little bit.
All of
You lose
it.
it all.
So that's also a concern, because there have been some handshake agreements that has been made with different developers in town, and because it's a handshake agreement, those things never came to fruition, such as the footbridge going across Reeves Creek Road, or across Reeves Creek there at Lake Louise. So we have to be very careful when we put these things in place, and we remove our conditional zoning, because then we have no negotiation about anything.
Yeah.
It's administrative, it doesn't even go before town
That's
council.
right. So I think we have to be very careful. It's a slippery slope that we're getting on when we start setting these zoning districts that take away conditional zoning. Some of these things, I agree with. Some of these things are a concern. So I think we just have to be very, very careful about what we're saying.
I'd also have some concerns if we assign an R6 or an R10 somewhere on the zoning map, and then we can't downzone it.
That's right.
That's right.
What do we do then?
That's right.
And that's why it was not a unanimous
Yeah.
vote
Yeah.
from the planning board.
That's exactly
On
right.
R10.
On R10.
I'm just curious also, was the main impetus behind the R10 idea to increase the pool of affordable housing?
Part of it was to create tools for the town council and planning board to use that would be administrative, that wouldn't always go through a conditional zoning district. So,
Right.
you know, that was line 7, 8, 9 on the general page, you know, stating goals. Preference for development within conventional districts as opposed to conditional districts, variety of zoning districts to meet the development needs of the town, diversity of housing options, provide for a range of affordability. I hear it, it's not all affordable.
Yeah.
But it does increase the density, which ideally at least would have some impact, but
I mean,
not
there's got to be a reason why we're talking about a 6 foot versus a 10 foot. And you're saying, okay, well, if it's a 6 foot, we put more houses on it. And therefore, if there's more houses on it, it should be more affordable. But what we've
No,
decided
it's not.
is that it's not.
It's not more houses with the side setbacks. It's with a 50-foot lot width and 10-foot side setbacks, you're limited to a 30-foot wide house. And that limits the style and design options of what you can do with that house. And mainly, it's if you can have a garage and a front entrance on your house, and that limits that. And so the reduced setbacks allows for a 38-foot wide house, which allows for a garage and a front entrance or a porch or what have you, and just provides you a lot greater design options. I don't know if Fred's a builder. He might be able to address, I don't know if you have any thoughts on the difference between a 30 and a 38 foot?
Yeah, we're stuck with a 30 foot. I think there's some ones right now that are 50 foot, stuck with 30. You're going to use all that or approximately one option for the over. Your footprint has to stay within the 30 feet. You can't
sidewalk, a front step that I have has to stay within 30 feet of my neighbor's house. And it's a step. But I understand the proximity with the setback, 6 foot on the side. More difficult as a builder, since you asked me, is the 30 foot off of a road. I understand the reasons for that. That's a lot of land, especially if you're only 50 foot wide and you're gonna stay to a 30 foot and you gotta stay 30 foot back. It really restricts the size of a house you can build. But the architectural features are gonna be like just a box because you're maximizing the amount of land you have to build on to give you the most square footage, which is what the price of the house is based on. Hope that was helpful.
Well, it would follow also the price of the house is, that we're talking about on a 38-foot house, it's going to be a higher priced house. It's a fancier house. That person is likely going to be able to afford the more expensive, less flammable products. Saying it follows.
Yeah.
It tracks.
The other element, at least when I did my review and sort of coming up with stuff, is looking at the historic examples of these size lots, and and all the examples that were provided in our packet. None of those that have a 45 or even up to 60 foot width have a 10-foot setback. And so that tells me that developers and builders wouldn't utilize a 50-foot lot with 10-foot side setbacks. And that we could have that on the books, but people would still want to maybe go conditional district or something because it wouldn't meet whatever requirements that they want to try to develop a property.
And what we've seen with the ZBA is that most everybody who comes before it with a petition that says, I can't build the house I want to build unless you give me a variance, 99% of the time it's granted.
A special use permit in those days, what would now be treated as conditional zoning. Let me add on to a couple thoughts before my thought leaves me forever. And again, I'm not having a philosophical conversation, I'm having a procedural conversation. This town has had one major subdivision in 75 years within its current single-family zoning district. The market has changed, our ordinance isn't performing as needed, we're doing it through conditional zoning or special use permit. Again, procedural, not philosophical.
Sure. Well, I do have a couple more questions, and I know from having lived in town for 20 years, other, the public chiming in, they really like the character of town. And we also have infrastructure stresses, traffic stresses. How do we do R6 and R10 in a way that maintains character, functionality?
Well, I think if you had a subdivision, let's say that it's on, and I'm not picking on the Northridge Commons area, but those homes are going to have this far setback. They don't even have a driveway that goes to their home. They have a parking lot. So there's not a place to park a car in front of their house. They have to park in a parking lot. Well, that decreases the firewall of the garage, and it makes things safer in a lot of ways. So I think if we have a say over those, that gives us a lot more ability to say, we don't want that here. But if we set that zoning district as, yeah, you can do that, it could be anywhere.
If you want to be happy with what the options are, then you're not going to see it. And if you're not happy about it, you want your eyes on it, then it's going to have to stay in conditional.
And I think the R10
But you would still see it through the zoning map amendment
Right.
process. Just if we put these conditions in place, they may never be used. We may get an application in tomorrow for R10 and 18 Highland Street, and y'all say no. I mean, it still has to come to you, each individual property with a zoning map amendment. And if you feel like it doesn't necessarily match the culture, the character of that area, then You simply tell them.
So maybe we're not understanding what you're asking of us. So hang on for 1 sec. I'm gonna find it, the Hussey's property.
So, responsive to John's question, I recall the town basically entertained what was known as a UDO a few years ago. Do you remember that, John? I think it was targeted for Main Street, but I mean, is that applicable to new development?
So Unified Development Ordinance,
Yeah.
it's a format of land use regulations. And we essentially have most components of a UDO in your chapter 20.
Okay.
What we don't, I think what you're talking about is the design standards portion of
Yeah.
that was limited to.
And we'll never be able to get there because in North Carolina, you cannot legislate the appearance of a structure covered by the 1 and 2 family building code.
Okay.
All right.
It's not allowed.
So let's procedurally walk through this. The Hussey's property behind their house, near the First Presbyterian Church, is 1.71 acres.
Okay?
And it is zoned R1, is that correct?
That is correct.
So without any permission from anybody, you can put 4 times 1.7. Is that correct? So roughly,
Provided they,
all the setbacks and all of that.
And that would all be done administratively, right?
correct?
Don't have to ask any permission, so you can put 6 houses on there, whatever the mathematically comes. So if this, Mark, what you guys want in place, he has to ask for a zone change. You're not doing an overlay.
No.
So nothing, because that's what I heard you say, nothing's, and it can be done with conditional zoning, and we've done it time and time again. I know what your fear is. It makes it easier. But we still have to approve it. So the Husseys are gonna go, we're tired of paying property tax on this piece of woods that nobody, first of all, they shouldn't be paying property tax on it, but that's a whole nother conversation. And they want now to go with R10. So 10 times 1.7. Simple math, just work with me, 17 there. That's what that means. We have to approve that. That is not automatic, or is that automatic?
You have to approve the zone.
Change, we have to approve the zone change.
The map.
Planning board as well. It would
Planning
go
board as
and
well.
go to planning.
They give us their recommendation, it's gonna go through them.
Based on what you
Correct.
asked to consider.
So,
But not the plat. You're not gonna approve the subdivision plat.
no, but you're asking the zoning change.
The zoning
And we can
change.
say no.
Yes.
But if we say yes, procedurally, it's faster and easier for everybody. We're arguing with ourselves.
Right.
In existence is a mechanism to do whatever we agree to. We could agree to, there's probably setback, can't go off on tangents, but what we vote on with changing of zoning, and that's what is the conditional zoning, anybody can come any day.
And with R10, we're establishing a zoning type that has a historic precedent of repeatedly happening within town limits.
Sure, and we talked about that, the number of smaller front lots that we had, so many, you guys, plenty brought that to us and said, this is a mistake because they exist already, why don't we? So it's a procedural thing. So, and that's the problem with this council, in 2 years it'll be a different council. We could all jump on Jennifer's bandwagon and go, no, we don't want people to die. And the next council goes, we don't care, have them touch, have 6-inch setbacks. Or you can do, this council could today go and do anything within conditional zoning that allows, right? So you're looking for a procedural thing.
So if we had a procedural thing, or if we had a thing that said you can do R10 as long as you keep setbacks, but if you want to change the setbacks to 6 feet, that would be conditional zoning. So if you wanted to have a 38-foot house instead of a 30-foot house, then you could do that, but it would be conditional zoning.
Yeah, I mean, if you're against R10 with these setbacks, then,
The setbacks are my only issue.
yeah, I realize that. But you don't have to vote, we don't have to vote when they ask to have the zoning change. Now, outside of zoning changes, they're gonna come and, your question earlier of, there's a piece of property in the county they have their rules, and they want us to annex them, like voluntary annexing, they go, we like R10. And this was this mistake we made on the cow pasture. If we don't like it for that piece of property, we then say no. We'd rather see, you vote no, be done with it, oh, by the way, let's talk conditional zoning, and then give them the big headache. Have I got my head around what you're asking for? Do I understand it?
What I think you're here to do tonight, and again, y'all, this is the first time y'all have really talked about this issue, and it may take you another meeting or two to talk about it. I think what the opportunity tonight is, you've got your planning board right here. They have studied this issue, so if you've got questions that you want to ask of them to help you, this is the great time to do that. And then y'all can, again, I know we're getting late. So I would make sure that any questions that you have of the planning board or Marshall Davis, you've got good access to James and I.
If I could just briefly summarize, this was to provide you a tool to use that still requires your approval, that potentially, and I think maybe not potentially, would speed up the process of things we have already been doing. It's a tool.
I have a couple more questions. Is there a point where setbacks are so reduced that we should just encourage townhouses or condos, still single family, but multi-units, like they do in larger cities or even around here? And then use all those reduced setback savings for more naturalized areas within the property or buffers. Just a thought.
Our current multifamily districts provide that opportunity, which is be R3 or R12.
You can already build secondary dwelling units, I think, on all of our.
Except R12.
Yeah, duplexes or multifamily dwellings that are 4 or fewer are permitted by right in R2, R3, and R12.
So you guys were split, right, on the R10?
Previous version of the planning board.
Okay.
3-2.
Unanimous on R6, but split on 3-2 and 5, and it was really over that side setback was the two neighbors, if I'm remembering correctly.
Is there, I mean, this might be a question for the fire marshal. When do the building requirements change? At what setback?
They don't control single family homes, it's only multifamily dwellings that come to this jurisdiction.
I think that might be an interesting thing for us to look at. If we're talking about, oh, it's 6, but those codes go into place somewhere else in between the restrictions.
Let me revise the question, and let's just say we're dealing between distance between structures rather than a setback from the property line. And maybe Mr. Boris can correct me if I'm wrong. I've been dealing with this only from a distance for many and several years, but there's something magical about 10 feet. The moment the distance between structures is at 10 feet, you're automatically launched into some other level of the fire code and or the building code that seemingly is a lot easier for people to avoid.
And when you talk about 10, are you talking about 20 between two buildings?
Yeah.
Right.
Distance between structure.
Right, so that's where you get your 10,
Right,
your
that just confirmed.
5-foot setbacks, because that gives you the 10 feet between the structures.
No, that's what I'm clarifying here, because at a 5-foot setback, you have 10 feet between buildings. At 10, you have 20.
That's correct.
So what is that magic? Is it the 10 or the 20?
It's the 10 that
It's
is,
the 10,
5-foot setback.
5-foot setbacks.
Right. So we're talking, when we say 6, we're talking 12.
Yes.
Which is 20% more than that magic.
Yes.
So interesting, say that again, Graham.
10 feet between house A and house B becomes much stricter.
And the materials they have to use.
Yes.
to make it safer.
So if what we're saying is that rule 12, you do not have to use the more strict. That's different.
10 between the
That's
buildings,
worse.
not
They're
10-foot
having-
setbacks. So 5-foot setbacks require, if they actually did them that dense, to use safer materials.
But that's, 5 foot's the cutoff.
The closer you are,
10.
the closer you get, the safer the material, not the further apart.
Yeah.
We're saying if it doesn't trigger until you're 10 feet apart, so 5 feet
said-
setbacks, that means at
Like
6.
6 is a
we're
bad
not
number.
triggering it.
No, 6 is
We're
a
just
bad, 6
making
is a
more
terrible,
risk.
6 is a terrible number.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what we finally got.
5, and that's probably why these were 5, most of them.
Some of them.
Well, in the examples you gave us, that we looked at, they were 5s.
6, 5,
6 is a horrible number. Because you're only 2 feet apart, you can use the cheaper, more flammable, quicker to die material.
And when we were having this discussion at the planning board.
Based
we
on
thought
2
6 was-
feet.
We thought 6 was safer.
No,
But
So-
you thought 10 was safe for some of us.
Well,
I'm like 500. I hate neighbors. Don't ever come and ask me for sugar, please.
only salt. So, to that, what would the town council like to see from the planning board in terms of our net? Might be a different way to frame that.
I would be okay if R10 is fine if you have the purpose of it inside.
Say, I didn't hear you.
R10 would be okay if you have a 10-foot setback on the side and rear, only 30 feet in front.
Which
If-
turns into 20.
Right, but if you want to have a closer together, more dense property, then I think that would require additional rain.
Does anybody have a tape measure?
Yeah, it's not that far.
Can
So
we
it's-
measure? I mean, I can walk it off, but how far is 20 feet? Kyle, are we 20 feet apart?
No.
Can we use some chairs as a demo to see what 20 feet is? He's gonna count. He's gonna count.
We did this in our planning board meeting.
did?
It's
One of them, yeah.
a lot closer than you think.
Get 12 feet.
Yeah, it's not that.
Take 3 steps off.
Okay, well, 3 steps is 9 feet.
I know.
Yeah.
Now we are, how far apart?
And that's when you have to use stricter.
Can we touch each other?
Almost, yeah.
That's what
So if you don't want an administrative tool to require, 5 or 6, you'll just get more conditional zoning requests. That's my interpretation. They'll just continue to come forward. We can always relook at this another time. I don't know who's going to use our 10-foot setbacks.
So I did hear a potential compromise in this conversation. I know you want 10-foot side setbacks. I also heard Mr. Worth say the 30-foot front setback is
Bigger
a
issue.
it's a bigger issue.
And I want that too, so 30 on the front.
So no compromise. But that is potentially you know, if you have 20 feet front yard setback, 10 in the side, 10 in the rear, you've got a bigger buildable footprint because you've gained a little bit of ground in the front.
If you did that and you didn't have a car sitting in the driveway, you did like we did in Orange County, where there's a parking lot to park your car. I don't care, that's fine.
I want to
It
go
is
down
the
to
car
5.
issue. The car issue is when you have a larger car that's gonna stick out the road.
I know,
Okay, to
y'all
have-
talked a lot about that.
That's my issue with that.
Maybe a long car.
Yes.
20-foot long car.
It's a truck. It's a crew cab F-350.
A standard parking space is 9 feet wide, 18 feet deep. So 20 feet is if you want to get your car fully off.
And then if there's sidewalk,
Yeah, but then you have a sidewalk.
So Fred, what's the ideal lot dimensions on a 50-foot frontage lot?
Excuse me, you're not gonna be, you're not.
Hang on, Fred.
Hang on, because you're not gonna be recorded, we're recording.
I'm sorry, forget about that. The 20-foot would be really helpful, because a car's not even close to 20 foot long, it's 10
My
foot.
car is 17 feet long,
So you could park in front of the house and still not be in the street.
and it would be sticking out the sidewalk.
So 25 is about the minimum you get, because 20-foot car, 5-foot sidewalk.
I bet it
Correct.
could.
What's the side setbacks?
10 foot's okay. I mean,
Total or 10-foot?
no, not total, 10-foot setback from the
5-foot
property
setback.
line. There's other things to consider too, I just gonna throw out, is if you have a sewer line that has to run through the property, you have to stay 10 foot from that, no matter where that is on the property. There's other factors than just the property line. You also have fences, bushes, the firemen have to contend with in between two houses, so. Biltmore Park down South Asheville, those houses, I don't know, those are close to each other. They're big houses. Their setbacks are really tight and, you know, they have driveways and they're not 30 foot from the road. But maybe that was a mistake, I don't know where I stand down, to be honest with you. I built I've had to say setbacks in different ways and they've worked. But I don't really understand, because I'm not on the planning board, but I'd love to be, is what's the purpose? Is it's not gonna change affordable housing in Weaverville. There's no way it's gonna change it. It's about it was pointed out at one of the meetings where they would like to sell because of the restrictions that are allowed. They have to be stepwise. And that would be helpful. I don't know if I made any sense. I hope it did.
Just hold the mic until the meeting's over.
The other thing we didn't quite look at, page 17 has what some of our neighboring towns use. Black Mountain, Woodfin, 20-foot front, sides at 10, and then rear 15 or 30. So they give a little bit here and there to build, depending on what they're trying to do. I don't know, were these the most closely matching to an R10, James? I wonder.
Yeah, again, in Weaverville, I estimated roughly 20% of downtown R1 district was historically platted at a 50-foot lot width. So it exists in Weaverville. And so that was one impetus of it. And then the other was looking at the other developments that came in at roughly that size. And so that's how we got to the dimensions we got, which just matches some of these newer ones. Yeah, as Michael mentioned, other neighboring jurisdictions have it, and that I just feel it should be on the books in Weaverville as a zoning category, simply to have the option available. And exclusively single family, just as a way to try to encourage single family development over multifamily, just to provide a little more flexibility.
Question on, if it is approved, we have a change to say 10, and that's on the books. Can the council then review at some other point after getting more data and seeing what applications come in? Could they review and say, we're going to change this setback, one way or another?
Anything this council does can be changed tomorrow.
Absolutely. I would at this point recommend, you guys are still talking about this, and we can certainly put this on your next agenda for February to allow you to continue the conversation, and we can put both, we can put the R6 and R10 in, and then whatever you decide you want to do. If you only want to adopt R6, we can back R10 out, but if you have an opportunity and can kind of come to some agreement on R10, then that would give you an opportunity to move that forward as well.
One other thing that I want to say about the R10 is we may need to add into our land use plan, if you have things that close together, you can't use pine straw around your house because it's more flammable, so you may want to think about adding some verbiage in it about the landscaping and the
Well,
mulch.
we have that now in
Okay, as long
town.
as it's in there.
No, I mean, we have that, houses that are less than 10 feet apart already in town. But it's not a 10-alarm fire to like remedy or fix. It's,
But if you allow certain types of mulch to be used around the home, it increases the risk of fire.
I know, what I'm saying is that in Weaverville right now, there's houses that are less than 10
know
feet
that.
to get apart.
I know that.
Okay. But we don't need to worry about it now, only if R10 becomes established?
I think if we start establishing these high-density developments going forward, we can't change the past, we can't change what people are doing in the past on their current lots. But if we're going to approve this high-density thing, we need to do all the remedies that we can to keep the people that are living there safe. The other thing is we need to make sure that the water lines that are going into these developments can carry the water that would be required to fight a fire. And it's not a 6-inch line, it may need to be an 8-inch line. So those are things also that you need to take into consideration when you're approving this high density. It's not just the lot size and how much room in between houses, but a lot of other factors that's going to go in there to be able for them to fight a fire or to prevent a fire. So we need to keep those things in our mind when we're doing this high density.
Is that town ordinances or is that building code?
That could be a zone.
I don't
No, it can't
know.
be.
Telling people what kind of mulch they can use in their yard? No way. Like, it's not happening.
Great detail in our PRC, how much water can flow through the property, how much they need, how fast it will get there. It's absolutely a topic of conversation when we come close to that.
The one thing that I always remind myself of on planning board is not just to think about the future possible residents, but also who's living here now. And that goes to John's philosophical.
So,
I still think we're lost.
I
think we're lost. It's a mechanism, John can philosophically want all he wants, but if I give the Hussies enough money and we get a stupid council, I can build what I want on the Hussies 1.7 acre. It doesn't matter what's on the books. I can ask for conditional zoning.
That's right.
I can give them $1.7 million and I can ask for conditional zoning, and if that council approves it, nobody's gonna like it. And we did it. So why are we talking about 6 and 10? I've heard Mark say it already exists. I've heard James say it, and Michael say, it's a mechanism to do things.
But you're already doing.
Correct. And I agree, we don't want to go just because we did it wrong in the past, we shouldn't do it wrong in the future, those two. But somehow I think we're stuck on what we're trying to debate.
So one other thing that I heard, actually I heard town council say, and it was, planning board attempted to handle that in this conversation too, is that you've got all of these old subdivisions that were platted that have the 50-foot, 75-foot lots. And so those get to build on the 50-foot lots, but then the bigger piece, the 1 acre piece doesn't. And so trying to be consistent with your development in a pretty challenging area where you've got really old subdivision plats out there that have set the original tone. Over the years, many have been combined to now are held in common ownership. 2 or 3 lots are. But they still have the right to build out on that original subdivision plat. So that's another reason. I think where y'all are, again, that you're saying you're lost. I think you're not lost. You're just in the middle of a good conversation. And so we'll put this back on. We'll check with the mayor to see whether that should go on the February 23rd agenda or pushed to March for both the R6 and R10. You've had your public hearing on these two districts already. If we get too far removed from that public hearing that was held on December 9th-ish, I start getting a little bit worried about whether you need to go back through that process again. But right now, I think you're in a good window to still be able to take action on whatever this council decides you want to put in place.
Jennifer, what about the R6? It doesn't seem like there's much drama or debate with that.
That's why I'm saying, we're gonna put both on, and then if you decide to carve off the R10 and say we're not ready to move forward with that, we can drop that off. Or if you decide that you want R10 just in a slightly modified way, we'll be able to do that.
So here's
Can we do straw polls, just to kind of, I'm curious kind of where everybody's
you.
head's at with this, like
All right,
is that,
raise your hand if you like R6 as is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's most everybody.
John was a half. He was a no, John was a half.
R10 with the current 30, 6, and 10 setbacks.
Well, I hate 6 setback because we just determined it was stupid, so I like it with a 5. But
1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4.
Well, what I was gonna say, you and Jennifer need to have multiple conversations, and this is what we said, you need 3 friends to do anything. So if you have 3 friends, Jennifer's voiced her displeasure and objection, and trust me, I was the lone vote many a time.
Yeah.
I lost. So if you've got 3 friends, you convince Steve to put it on it, you listen to Jennifer, give her the courtesy she deserves, and go, it really doesn't matter, Jennifer, I got 3 votes.
Well, we just straw poll, there's 4. So.
But it's not, that's different than really voting, for sure. You know, so you have time to have conversations, and we should utilize our planning board.
Yeah, please reach out for conversation.
Yeah, it's a new planning board to go, here's Jennifer's concerns.
We advise, we're here to use the tools that you give us, to give you the back our advice or recommendations.
One of those tools is the next item, which is your resolution concerning growth areas. It may be that one of the things that you might want to do is broaden that to not just include your growth areas, but also deal with especially the downtown area and what you might want to see, or more importantly, not see in the downtown area. And that could be a good signal to the planning board. We do not want R10 in the downtown area. I mean, that could be a way to signal that.
And I think maybe that's where I was trying to get to is R6 and R10 probably have an appropriate place. And since I live right in the core, maybe I'm biased a little bit.
Well, we would not want R10 out Reeves Creek. We didn't want R3 out there.
Right.
So that was, the density was something that originally when I got on the planning board, we did want R3. And then with the communication, it backed down before rezoning.
But did you not want R3 because exclusively of the density or because of the multifamily? It was part of that conversation.
It was density and the traffic along the Reeves Creek corridor that was not going to be widened anytime soon by itself.
Got it. So
I
that's
think we have a lot to talk about in the
Yep.
future as well. We need to continue this conversation, 'cause we could go a long time, I think. So at this time, I think it would be appropriate, how do we close this meeting? Do we need a motion to?
Motion to adjourn from both
Yes.
boards.
Yes. Motion to adjourn that planning board's home.
All in favor?
Aye.
We adjourn.
Okay.
Hey, you can do some celebrating.
We did last year.
Yeah, if we get selected, I would love downtown.
Yes, sir, well, usually, I think we got everything.